Yes, perfect. My friends, once again, thank you so much. Vitan is welcome, Kinga. Thank you. I didn't know that. So Vitan, I guess, Vitan, Vitan. I think it is Vitan. Vitan, everyone. Welcome, everyone. This is already our 8th time together, so it's been full 2 months already. So I have nothing but thank you to say to you. And this last lecture, it's a compilation of the questions, of some of the questions I got. I have to choose some great questions. They're great questions. I chose 10 questions, and I want to go kind of on a fast pace. I don't want to spend too much time on those questions, but very good questions. And I think it is going to be a good discussion of and a summary of everything that we talked about in the 7 previous conversations that we had for these almost 2 months we've been together. I'm so glad that Alicia is helping me with audio, because I have no idea right now what's written there. So Alicia, thank you so much. Again, I would like to thank Ultradent for the invitation. I'd like to thank also Olga Mentnarovska from Czech Republic for the idea and the invitation. And my friends, without further delay, let me share my screen and let's talk about the questions you send me. And don't forget, if you have any question, please forward those questions. This is not the last chance. Also, you can keep me on, write me on an email or Instagram if you wish. I try to reply as fast as I can, so it doesn't have to be the last chance today. But today is going to be the Q&A. Q&A is questions and answers in English. So all the ideas, all the questions that you guys send me, I made a compilation of those questions, and the first one is a very good one. This is one of my favorite, because this is something I take for granted. I presented several times. I know I haven't spent too much time talking about something that becomes simple, but it is not intuitive. So this becomes routine. This becomes super simple, but it is not routine. And how to pick the correct shade of a newer composite system, such as Mosaic. And we're going to see that this is not exactly new. This is a technique that's been around for 20 years already. But the thing is, why do I have to start with A3 or A3.5, whatever, if the final color is A2? I want to give an example, and this is a good example here. This is the restorative. I presented this case when we talked about lasers and gingival contour and anatomy. So I presented this case already. And this is a case that, I don't know, 80% of my cases probably I do like this. It's a simple layering concept, and I want to show the layering that I did, only to remember this is the starting point that I started. But the simple layering that I do, and 80% of my cases, is going to be this on anteriors. It's going to be an A3. Then I'm going to overlap in some portion, the cervical third, whatever, the end of the cervical third. I'm going to overlap an A2. And then I'm going to place my enamel white. So the enamel color doesn't follow the Vita shade. What I have it is a translucent color, a little bit more whiter, very thin, little thicker on incisal, gets thinner until it's not existent on the last millimeter on the cervical. So I used A3, A2, an enamel white. What do I get? Let's see again. A3, some overlapping on A2, and then EW, thicker on incisal, really thin on the center, almost non-existent, too non-existent on cervical. Okay, I used A3, A2, and I use enamel white. What do I get? A1, but with a shift from more color on cervical to less color on incisal. So why do I do that? Because when we see a tooth that looks like A2, actually we're looking at enamel and dentin at the same time. Enamel usually is whiter, dentin usually is darker than the A2 that we see. So simply what I'm doing is what nature does. So basically is that the natural layering concept was brought by Lorenzo Vanini in 1996. So it's been around for 24 years already, at least. So it's not a new technique. When we say, so new composites, they need that, because it's not a popular technique, but it is a very useful and very beautiful technique. So that's why if you have a tooth that it is A2, don't be afraid of picking a higher chroma, more color of the what you see when you see enamel and dentin together. This is the thing. We've been trained to see both of them, enamel and dentin together. If we separate information, it is easier. And that's the thing. Usually what we see as A2, it is an A3 dentin and some translucent whitish enamel. That's nature. It's simply replicating nature. So that's a very good question. And Mosaic is one of the composites. Vital Essence is another composite. It's not available here in Europe. It's available in the Americas, in US, in Brazil, some portions of Asia, I guess. But Mosaic is one example of a composite that does that here in Europe. Awesome. That's another very good question. Well, while layering, very often I get a grayish color, it gets gray. How to avoid that? It's very simple. Usually what happens is that the enamel layer, it is too thick. And this is the thing. This is let's say that's the price we pay. When we use that system that I said, A3, A2, enamel, white, we need to control the thickness of the enamel layer. This is mandatory. You get very beautiful results as long as you control the thickness of the enamel layer. If you make it too thick, it's gonna be gray, so we lose control of the restorations. So this is a good example, a very thin layer. Those are the thin layers that we need to use, very thin layers, and control the thickness of those layers. Okay, so to use a little bit of the color is spread very evenly, controlling the thickness of that layer, and then we get that. And if you remember, I don't know if that was the first one, so that's 2 months ago, I talked about that composite wetting resin. All of the anterior cases that you saw on those 2 months, for sure, I used the composite wetting resin to control the thickness. I've been using that one for 15 years already and can live without. Irena, boa tarde for you too, Irina. Boa tarde. That's perfect Portuguese there. Perfect. Congratulations. You know more Portuguese than I know Polish. Speaking on polishing. Oh, this is important. Exact steps to achieve a beautiful luster finish. And what about polishing paste? You should use polishing paste, but there's a correct timing to do that. So let's separate finishing, polishing, and luster. Okay, so how do I do that? I start with finishing. So it's always this: finishing, polishing, and luster. Okay, finishing. Finishing is a little rougher. I start with a scalpel blade. So with a scalpel, 12C blade. So it cuts on both sides. It's like this is the shape. Cuts on both sides. Very good to do interproximal. 15C blade. It's like the 15, but a little smaller. Very good. So I literally gonna scope little edges, little rough areas that I see. But this is very rough. After I use the scalpel, 12C blade or 15C blade or both, I'm gonna use the sandpaper discs, so the polishing discs. Polishing discs, they are a little less rougher, but rougher than the silicone points. So I'm gonna use the whole sequence of discs, and I'm gonna create all the angles, all the flat areas, all the surfaces that I want. So scalpel blade, discs, the whole sequence. After that, I finished the finishing. Now I'm going to start doing what? Polishing. Polishing, you should use good silicone points. I've been using Jiffy systems also from Ultradent. For me, it's very easy to know the colors, the sequence of colors, because it follows the Brazilian flag, even though I'm living here, but that is the Brazilian flag, the sequence of colors. Green, coarse. Medium is going to be the yellow. Fine is going to be white. And extra fine, because it's a diamond and lasts forever. I have one that it is probably more than 5 years old. Is diamond. So it's a very fine diamond dust on the blue one. So we have coarse, medium, fine, extra fine. The whole sequence always below 10,000 RPM. 10,000 RPM is 1/3 of the low speed burr. So it's always very slow, always very slow. And I'm gonna repeat that, always is lower than your handpiece. If you try to do it faster, you're gonna hit the composite, you're gonna ruin, it takes way more time to do the polishing, it's harder. So reduce the speed when you're polishing with discs, when you're polishing with the silicone points. A whole sequence. After we did that, we can use the Jiffy brush. Oh, there's a good one also. I think it is available here. It was not available in Brazil, but it is available here in Europe. It is the spiral. So Ultradent have very good spirals, because spirals helps us with what? With pressure. It is impossible to apply too much pressure with spirals. So if you can try using those spirals, very good. It's called Jiffy Natural, very easy to use. So you use the yellow one, which is the medium. After that, you're going to use the white one, the fine. And it is very easy, because it doesn't matter how much pressure you apply, it absorbs the pressure. Very good, very easy to use. I remember the first time I used, I was doing a Facebook Live. So it was live. Very easy to use. You can use the brushes, but now we're talking about the final step. This is luster. After polishing, we have luster. Luster is going to shine like my bald region here. So it's going to be really shiny. We're going to use these bristles. These bristles, we can see that it is filled, and we can see here, those are silicon carbide points, very strong. So you're going to use gently. And finally, polishing pastes. I prefer on polishing pastes, I prefer using diamond paste. There's aluminum oxide, which is good, but I think it takes too long. Diamond polishing pastes I prefer. Specifically speaking, I like Ultradent's polishing paste because I have two options. So I have 1 micron and 0.5 microns, which is 500 nanometers. So it's very small particle, very easy to use, and very fast because it is diamond. It's very easy to use, very fast to use. If you remember, I showed this case already. I've forgotten which one. Okay, this is a quick question, but a very important one. Which composite is more suitable for anterior and posterior? Nowadays, most composites, in terms of strength, there's no separation anymore. Who's stronger? It doesn't matter. All of them are really stronger. My opinion is, how do I choose a composite for anterior and posterior? For anterior, it must look good and must be easy to spread, to control the thickness. This is what I do, what I look after on an anterior composite. Something that it is easy to spread and that looks good. What I look on a posterior composite, something that looks good and something that it is easy to scope. Very hard to use. Both of them are going to be strong. Nowadays, most of composites are strong, but I want something that it is easy to spread on anterior, easy to scope on posterior, very hard to find. Mosaic is one of the things. I remember last year I was in Colony in Germany, and one of the things I was talking about this composite was exactly that. It is this property that I haven't found in any other composite. One, that it is easy to spread, so I can control thickness and aesthetics on anteriors, but I can also scope sulcus and every ridges and every anatomical details on posteriors. One of the things I love about Mosaic, definitely why This is my first option when I'm doing composites nowadays. This is my first option. Awesome. About Uveneer, we're halfway through already. This is going to be a fast one, my friends. Uveneer, why having both the regular Uveneer and the new one? I think I talked about the Uveneer Extra already. Which cases I would use which? So does it make sense to have both? I think so. I have both. And I think it depends a little bit on how much static results are needed. So there's more options in terms of teeth. There's more templates because we have the lowers as well with the regular one. The regular one gives us from premolar to premolar in two different sizes, small, medium and large, small and large, I guess I forgot the name, but it's two sizes anyway, premolar to premolar, upper and lower. The extra, no, the extra is only from canine to canine, but there's more shapes and also there's a little texture. So if you remember, this is the extra. This is a case that I finished a little before the COVID hit Brazil. So this is probably my last big case I did. This is the Uveneer Extra. Uveneer Extra gives me secondary anatomy, gives me texture, something that we don't have. We have to, if we want, we have to create with the regular Uveneer. But the regular Uveneer, it is my working horse. It's the one I have, that I use more doing wax-ups. So for instance, so I do most of my wax-ups with the regular Uveneer. I think it is easier. I don't want too much texture on wax-up. Gingivectomies I use, provisionals I use. The dentition that doesn't have texture, I use the regular Uveneer. So I think they complement each other. I think Uveneer Extra, it's a good complement, a complementation to the regular Uveneer. When to use which? When you need texture, definitely a more static result, definitely I would use the Uveneer Extra. But if you're working on a bigger case and you need the lowers as well, then the regular Uveneer. This is an awesome question. Whitening. Why do we clean it? How do we clinically know which brand is more stable? The first question is why it should be stable, and that's the reason. That's the main reason why I loved this question, because the person who made it knows that stability is everything that we need when we're looking for a bleaching agent. So there's no bleaching agent that bleeds better, bleeds more. What a bleaching agent should do is to do that safely, to do it safer, and to do it more consistently. How a bleaching agent can do that? If it is stable, it maintains the percentage, it maintains the concentrations that he was built in, or in other words, what it is written outside, it should be what it is in the gel. How do we know that? Because if I'm using a 15% carbamide peroxide, I need to know that it is, and make sure that it is a 15% carbamide or a 10% carbamide or a 6% hydrogen peroxide. I need it to be 6% hydrogen peroxide. How do we know that? Okay, by reading articles, or there's an indirect way, which is not scientific, but helps clinically. And I know I showed this video before. A stable product, it's only gonna be stable if it uses pure raw materials. If the materials from which it's built, it is purer. The carboxypolymer, the purest one, it is a very thick one. So this is the thing. The thickening agent on opalescence, it is the purest, thickest of all. So that's why it is more viscous. The more viscous it is, the more stable it is. The more viscous it is, the more water it needs. The more water it needs, the less the tooth dehydrates. The less the tooth dehydrates, less sensitivity, no fake whitening colors, and a faster ion transit. So it's faster for the peroxides to go inside of the tooth. And all of this comes from a very pure thickening agent. So it's easy to see. The more stable one is going to be the thickest one. And I think there's another video as well. This is the video I made last year when I was in Brazil as well. So this is another product, White Dental Beauty. It is not available. It's definitely not known in that part of the planet. So it was a new material for me when I got in contact. Actually, Olga, thank you again, because Olga supplied me the material to make some testing. And before even hitting the lab, this is a testing that I did, a fast one, only to see how thick it would be, to try to understand how pure it is and how stable it is. And we can see it is, again, it is just another player. It's nothing special. Probably it's not going to be as stable, and it's going to dehydrate the tooth a little bit more. Of course, again, as I said, this is not science. It's only something that we can do in order to see what it is happening. Okay, and the stability brings more more consistent. This is the word I was looking for. Consistent results. Not only wider, faster, lower sensitivity, on a steady pace. So without surprises. That's what I like. Tissue management and what it is active hemostasis. Exactly what it is active hemostasis is when. What is the definition of that? Active hemostasis. Hemostasis is when the coagulum forms, okay? So we all know, we all remember for dental school what it is, the process of a coagulum, how the coagulum forms. So the platelets, it's gonna release some aggregation proteins, and all the fibrinogen that it is present in our blood is going to become fibrin, and fibrin is going to make a mesh, and this mesh is going to trap some blood cells, and that's how we get that. So this is hemostasis. What it is active hemostasis is when we create, because we created, or because it was created naturally, through the process, not outside of the capillaries, inside of the capillaries. So we all know that. If you have a little bruise and it is bleeding, what do? You press. You press. So the coagulum forms not outside of the wound, inside of the wound. If it is inside of the wound, healing is faster, and you can scratch, doesn't bleed again. Active hemostasis is when the coagulum is formed inside of the capillaries. That's what we need to do in controlling bleeding in the gingival tissue. So active hemostasis is what the viscostat or the astringent gives us. If we use the metal dental infuser, which is a metal cannula with a little sponge, it's got a little brush at the end, we're gonna rub the material inside of the capillaries, removing the coagulum that forms outside, and expressing and injecting a little bit more gel on the region, so the gel can act a half of a tenth of a millimeter, but the coagulum is gonna be formed inside of the capillaries. This means that we can apply the cord, we can do the impression, we can do our composite, we can place a matrix band, and it is not gonna bleed again. This is mandatory. Control of the operatory field, it is mandatory. That's something that we always need, okay? Always need. So this is the case when I removed to do it was direct veneers. I was increasing the DVO, the occlusal, the vertical dimension. So the VDO of the patient were increasing. I removed provisional from canine to canine, and it is very normal to have some degree of inflammation. So to control that bleeding, it is mandatory. And that's what the ferric sulfate does. So ferric sulfate in viscostat, it's going to create the coagulum. If you express and if you brush a little bit inside of the capillary, and this is active hemostasis, something that you can trust that it is not gonna bleed again. My favorite topic, the one that we talked last time, what curing modes to choose for direct and indirect restoration. So I'm gonna be very honest. You guys all know that I use Velo, and there's several reasons. And if you don't know why, remember that that was the last lecture for about that. And if you want to know more about that, write me an email. And you remember, I gave you guys the link for the lecture that I have on Teachable Database, ultradent.com/CE, continuing education. There's several lectures. You should not miss that because there's very good lectures there, including one about light curing. So there are several reasons why Velo is superior, the reason that I use Velo, but which mode I use more? I use standard mode more than any other mode. So direct, bonding agent, indirect restorations, I use the standard mode, but way more than any other. Extra power mode, which was called some time ago plasma mode because it's very strong, I use as well when I have to go through let's say 2 millimeters of ceramic, 2 millimeters of composite. If I'm doing an indirect, sometimes the first flash of light, I might choose this. So this is one of the things I like about Velo. I can choose how strong it's gonna be. We can see Velo here on the intermediate amount of light. So it's not because it is stronger. Velo is not only stronger, it's more collimated. So this is one of the things. It's not raw power. Velo doesn't work because it screams louder, because it releases more light. Velo is better because collimate, one of the, not only this reason, but one of the reasons, because collimates more light. So this is the thing. You don't need to use very strong on the everyday basis, to use the stronger settings to make sure light's going further. Velo, one of the reasons I chose is because it's very collimated. So 85% of my cases, I'm gonna use standard mode, 15 seconds. Some of the cases of indirect cases, then I switch to high power mode, the extra power, which is the strongest one, 3200 milliwatts per square centimeter. So averagely 3 times stronger than standard mode. When I'm doing some indirect, and not all, the thickest ones, I do that. And remember, the main thing, one of the main differences on Velo, it is the lens, is the collimation of light. So you don't need to use a very strong amount of light, even from Velo, when you're using that. So remember that, how much light is being produced, how much light is being delivered. That's what we need to know on our curing devices. Since it's very, the light in Velo is collimated, you don't need all of the time to scream louder with your light. It does the job very well. This is an awesome one. So how to cure and reduce C-stress and shrinkage. Doesn't depend on the curing, doesn't depend on your light, doesn't depend on that. Depends on the composite you're using, and more than that. So it doesn't matter if you're doing a step, and none of those, any of those things works. Doesn't depend on curing. It depends on the configuration of the cavity, angles of the cavity, and which composite you're using, how much filler there is in the composite. Fillers not per weight, filler per volume. 2 weeks ago, 1.5 weeks ago, I was lecturing for Spain. And I was talking about that. When we're choosing a composite, the information that it is necessary is filler, the percentage of filler per volume. Volume, and I'm going to repeat it again so you don't forget. Volume. Filler per weight is useless information. Useless, completely useless information. we need to understand per weight. But why some manufacturers, they speak about weight and not volume? Because it's a larger number. It's more beautiful. So if they are ashamed of volume, they're going to use weight. Good, reliable companies, they will have in their instructions for use volume. Ultradent is one of the few that speaks about volume. Around 60%, that's what we need. 60% per volume, not per weight, per volume. Around 60%, 57, 55, 60, 61. Those are good numbers per volume. And only by stating that, usually you can trust a company that talks about filler per volume. Depends on that, and depends also on the configuration of the cavity. Remember that class 1 is the worst. Veneers is the best to do that, to reduce the shrinkage stress, to decrease the C factor. How do we decrease C factor? By diminishing the amount of walls that are in contact with the composite, and also by rounding the edges. So if you're removing an old amalgam, and the old amalgam, it needed very straight angles, it is the opposite with composites. So high field composite per volume around 60%, 55 up, it is already 57, 60 is already good. Reducing the number of walls that are in contact with the composite, and by rounding those edges in your cavity. And that's why I use a lot of a very flowable composite on those edges. And PermaFlow, for instance, has 55% of filler. So it's a flowable composite with a very good percentage of filler per volume. So that's one of the reasons I use sometimes I do the whole restorations with PermaFlow. Sometimes I don't. It's only rounding the edges. That helps a lot. Okay. Rafael, the 10th is gonna be the last one. No, because there's an extra one. There's an extra one. But this is a very good one. What is the chance of get thermal pulpitis? Or the thermal effect to heat the pulp when we're using extra power and high power mode, when we're working with adhesives and actually I changed this question a little bit, because this question was made for pediatric dentistry. It works for pediatric dentistry, it works also for adults. So the answer is the same one, and it is a good news. It's good news. Those are the works from Dr. Cesar Arraes. He's a Brazilian researcher in Brazil, and have a very beautiful series, not only one article, it's a series of different articles, and also doctorate theses about that, not only from him, from his students. So it's a series, it's not one, again, it's not one article, it's a series of works, and all of them, they say the same thing. It is almost impossible to do that. Even if you want, it is very hard to get. Dentin has a very good has a very good capacity of reflecting that heat or absorbing without transmitting. And the pulp itself, especially in kids, the flow of blood is higher. So let's say some blood comes in, hits a little bit, and it's not that much. It leaves, and another colder blood comes. So there's circulations, and that's what he did in his research. He measured the temperature on a live tooth where the circulation is intact, and he found out that when we're doing the procedure, after we did the bonding and the washing and everything, the tooth is not even at 36 degrees. The tooth is at 27 degrees. So actually, it is a pretty big favor we do if we could heat, and it is hard to heat. And the cases that the tooth was heated, it was back to 32 degrees, which is still a little cold. So there's no risk in doing that. And if you were afraid, we have to take more caution, more care about what? about the soft tissues, about the gingival tissue, because this one is red. This one doesn't reflect heat. This one absorbs heat. So the gingival tissue is the one that we need to pay more attention to. So if you have a focused and collimated light, you can create a little space of 1, maybe 2 millimeters. If your light is collimated, it doesn't make any difference. And you can create a flow of air, either positive because you're blowing air, or negative because you're drawing air with the suction, for instance. I use the suction. I prefer using the suction. So by creating this flow of air, this is a radiation. So radiation, it's a radiator, sorry. It's a radiator. So I'm removing heat as well. But I'm more concerned on the soft tissues than on the hard tissues because of the work of Dr. Cesar Arraes in Brazil. So, okay, heat. Oh, this is the work. And I think this one was the first one. This is from 2000, if I'm not wrong, 2015. This is the first one, but there's another one from 2018, 2020. So this year there's new articles, then there's 2019 as well. So it's a sequence of works. This was the first one. So dentin gives us 95% heat attenuation, nothing to be worried about. Extra question, this promise is going to be the last one, but this one, it is one that slipped like I just put it. It's been like 30 minutes ago. Why does Peak Universal, it is so much stronger than other ones? So what it is Peak Universal? Peak Universal, it is an adhesive from Ultradent, and it is really strong. It is stronger. There's 2 reasons why it is so strong. One of the reasons is very easy to understand. There's more fillers. The more fillers that it is on any curing material, doesn't matter if it is a composite or a bonding material, the more filler, the less contraction. The less contraction, the stronger it is. So it contracts less, the stronger it is. This is one of the things. Another thing, it is nowadays, most of the good adhesives, good bonding agents, they're going to work on micromechanical retention, as they always did, but also chemical retention as well. So it's not only micromechanical with collagen fibers and all the things that we learned, also chemical reaction. So a very well-known material is the MDP. MDP is a node, not that new, it's already 80s technology, so it's a technology from 30 years ago. It was patented, and 10 years ago, the patent dropped, so anyone can fabricate that. But we're talking about a technology that was created 30 years ago. Besides fillers, Peak has a technology that they named Dymetec, and Dymetec, it is like the MDP on steroids. It's like me and Arnold, I am MDP and Arnold Schwarzenegger, it is Dymetec. So it's way stronger. And why is that? Because it's not only one phosphate monomer, it is 3 phosphate monomer with 12 cross-links. So it's at least 12 times stronger. The chemistry that bonds to calcium, when this is important. Since this is the challenging case discussion, and I wanted to finish this series of 8 lectures, and I'm already 9 minutes behind my original schedule, I wanted to finish with this challenging case here. Challenging because the tooth was alive, 18-year-old patient, and I have the 2 cusps on a non-working side. So the buccal is not working. It is non-working. So I don't have to reduce to make any protection, not in the first case. But the thing is, I have a tertiary dentin down there. A tertiary dentin is a very calcified dentin. So this is the thing. If it is very calcified, it is a very hard to etch. This dentin, it is very hard to etch. If it is very hard to etch, it is micromechanically speaking, it's not going to be that easy. So if I could use some chemistry, some phosphate monomer to help me with that, I know it's gonna bond a little faster, not faster, a little stronger. It's gonna be a little stronger. So this is I would definitely, this is from 2007, so we're talking about 13 years ago. No, 2009, this one. This was 2009 or 2000, I can't remember more. It's 2009 or 10, doesn't matter. I would do differently. I did directly in mouth. Nowadays, I would do indirectly. I think it is easier, but I would use the same bonding agent that I used. I used PEEK because it is stronger. And it is not by reading somebody's, only by reading Dr. Price, Dr. Felix research. This is something that I did already several times in the laboratory, and several bonding tests I did, even though like curing nowadays is what I do more, scientifically speaking. I know for sure that it is a very strong material, and that's why PEEK as well is the bonding agent that I use in 98% of my cases. My friends, once again, I have no words to thank you all for the warm welcome, for the 2 months that we spend every Wednesday together. It's been a wonderful journey. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for all the words you've been trying to teach me, but I'm a hard learner, as you saw. Thank you. Congratulations on your Portuguese, which is definitely better than my ability to speak Eastern European languages, either from Poland or Czech Republic or Slovakia or whatever you guys are hearing that. If there's no, let me check the chat. If there's no other questions, feel free, because we have these final moments to talk about that. But once again, I would like to thank Olga for the invitation, and Idea, Alicia from Dornwell for doing all the work behind the publicizing and talking about that and promoting the lecture. Thank you so much as well. I would like to thank everyone that it is here, everyone that followed the sequence of lectures, because 8 lectures, I think it is a lot of lectures. It's 2 months. And for me, it's been a wonderful journey. I can't wait for this COVID thing to be, past us, because there's a few countries on the other side here in Europe that I'm dying to see, that I need to come back. Poland, I need to come back. Czech, I never been. Slovakia, I never been. So can't wait for this COVID to be a thing of the past. Now that I'm living closer and I can go. But I know for sure that in no time we'll be able to see face to face. And then I can thank you guys on face to face. And we can share some good beer and good laughs. So once again, thank you all. You all are the best. You're the greatest. Feel free again. Hey, Rafi, like the nickname of Rafa, I have a question for you. Write me an email. Send me an Instagram message as the messages that I got, the questions that I got. And how about a discount for UK customers? That's a great idea. I wish I could have some influence of that. But I think I know some people that might help. So I'll talk to them. I don't know how much influential I am, probably nothing. But that's a good question. I love the idea of discounts. And I've been to UK last year. Oh, that was a great trip. That was really a great trip. I still remember the candies that I had on the St. Pancras Hotel. It's a candy, but it's the first thing when I go back to London, this is the thing I'm gonna do before anything else. It's gonna get those little candies from the St. Pancras Hotel. Natalia, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You're the best. Anna, thank you so much as well. You're the best. Very happy, very happy. For me, it was a flash. Like 8 lectures, I haven't felt those 8 lectures. It's been a joy to be with you guys. But again, as I said, Can't wait to get the real thing again. Now I'm back here. Can't wait to have that. My friend, so if there's no... Michał, thank you so much. Dziękuję. This is different from Poland, Michał. I know dziękuję, which is probably getting worse by the time. That's why I have to, one of the reasons I have to go back to improve my language skills again. Marcela, super gracias. Thank you so much. Anna, you're late again. But at least this time you were hearing me, hopefully. Oh, so I told you guys, Olga, thank you so much. Contact Olga Mentnarovska at ultradent.com for UK orders. She's the boss. So talk to her. Mirella, definitely, I hope to see you again also. Cassia, thank you. Cassia, you're a hero. You've probably been in all 8 lectures. Ola, thank you so much again. Let's create some new webinars. There's 2 cases I'm working on, new cases. One is the Uveneer step-by-step, the Uveneer Extra, the step-by-step. I have to work on that one. And there's another one, probably next month is going to be finished. Very beautiful case as well. Good, you can. I'm glad you can, Anna. Glad you can hear me this time. Perfect. My friends, you all been so great. I'm a little worried about your time because it's almost 7:45. Here is 8:45 for most of you, I guess. I guess Dr. Okedi, it's on the same time zone that I am. If it is in UK, probably we're sharing the same time zone. Probably it is 15 to 8 for him as well. My friends, again, thank you so much. You're all the best. Neyrod, thank you. Olga, thank you. Alicia, thank you. All of you, my friends, thank you. Hope we can meet in person soon enough, as soon as this COVID thing becomes a thing of the past. Thank you so much. Take a well-deserved rest. I'm gonna have some dinner. And don't hesitate to write me if there's any questions here at my surname at gmail.com. Oh, to everybody. I only sent to one person. So here we go again. On the chat, my email is there as well. Thank you so much. Take some rest. Have a good Thursday, good Friday, and an awesome weekend. And hope we can meet soon enough. Big hug to all of you. Bye-bye.